What's up, my Central Unit Galaxy? It's the Central Man here, so back again with another classic WWE pay-per-view review. So WrestleMania season has arrived. We got about a couple weeks until WrestleMania 37, so the next couple weeks I'm going to review some classic WrestleManias. So today I'm reviewing the first WrestleMania, WrestleMania 1 at Madison Square Garden in New York City on the 31st of March 1985. The attendance for the show was 19,121. You could call it a pay-per-view. This is the company's first closed-circuit television event. This is the predecessor to Starrcade. Starrcade is their version of WrestleMania for the NWA, the future WCW. They did it 2 years earlier. The first Starrcade was in 1983. I covered Starrcade 83 a couple months ago on this channel. Go and check it out. Without Starrcade, there will never be a WrestleMania. The first Starrcade was in 1983. The first WrestleMania was in 1985. So for this show, this is basically success or bust for the World Wrestling Federation. Luckily, this show was a success. I'll explain it again in the end of this review. So the commentators for the show are Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body Ventura. The very first match at the very first WrestleMania, we got Tito Santana taking on the Executioner Buddy Rose. That is Buddy Rose under a mask. So I've done my research on this Buddy Rose character. He wrestled like in the 70s and the early 80s. He wrestled in the territory areas in America. I think he wrestled in the Northwest Pacific territory. He feuded with Roddy Piper. He kind of put Roddy Piper's career on the map. So, and now he's wrestled in the WWF. He was kind of like a jobber. I might get this fact wrong. So, the story in the legend is that the booker of the WWF at the time, George Scott worked with the two Vinces, Vince Sr. and Vince McMahon, the Vince you see right now. The rumors that George Scott doesn't want Buddy Rose to lose. So in the story that Buddy Rose found a mask and they just called him the Executioner. They don't want Buddy Rose to lose at the first WrestleMania. So anyway, and Tito Santana was kind of feuding with Greg the Hammer Valentine for the IC title. I'll get to that a little bit later on because Greg Valentine was in a match, so you have to wait a little bit later on. Anyway, so this match and also the matches at this WrestleMania, WWE kind of overrate this show because it was a historic show. They're kind of selling it oh, this was the best show, but in reality, it's not a good show. Actually, it wasn't a terrible show, but it wasn't a great show. Compared to the modern day WrestleManias, this will never cut it. It'll be in in the bottom half of I'll put it in the bottom 10, probably rank it 20, top 25, but I don't really put it in the top 10. It's not really a watchable show. It's, like I said, not terrible, but not great. Anyway, the match between Tito Santana and the Executioner Buddy Rose under the mask. Short match, it was okay for what it is. You had Executioner work on the leg of Tito Santana. In the end, Santana locked in the figure 4 leg lock onto the Executioner. The Executioner submitted, and Tito Santana won the very first match at the very first WrestleMania. I think he ended up having a losing streak. I think it was 1-8 at WrestleMania. He wrestled under the Tito Santana name, and then he became El Matador in the early 90s. He kind of expired, Primo and Epico become the Los Matadores. As for Buddy Rose, he kind of left the company. He go back to the territory areas. I think he go back to the Northwest Pacific. He wrestled in the AWA. He came back in the early 90s as Playboy Buddy Rose. He was a jobber. He did the whole blow away diet sketch, and then he retired later on, I think in the 90s. He opened up a wrestling school. The most notable wrestler trained by Buddy Rose is Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regrets. Subscribe to him. That is Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret. Because Brian said like he got trained by Buddy Rose. If you watch a lot of Brian's old videos in the past. Anyway, so moving on to the next match. The next match we got the very first squash match at WrestleMania. We got King Kong Bundy taking on Special Delivery Jones. The match only lasted about 25 seconds. King Kong Bundy got the victory, hit like a splash onto SD Jones. I think it's first of 5 squash matches at WrestleMania, so I might be wrong about this. You had like Kane squashing Chavo Guerrero at WrestleMania 24 for the ECW title. Rey Mysterio defeated JBL in seconds to win the IC title at WrestleMania 25. You got Sheamus squashing Daniel Bryan in 18 seconds to win the world title in the opener of WrestleMania 28. I think the most recent squash match The Rock squashing Eric Rowan at WrestleMania 32 in 2016. As for King Kong Bundy, funny that the following year's WrestleMania, he ended up being in the main event of WrestleMania 2, facing Hulk Hogan in a steel cage match for the WWF Championship. Yeah, it's funny that he squashing SD Jones in 25 seconds at the first WrestleMania, and then the following year's WrestleMania, he's in the world title picture in the main event at the following year's WrestleMania. The next match, we got Ricky Steamboat taking on Matt Bourne. Matt Bourne will become the first Doink in the early 90s. Sorry. I burped. Anyway, the match was just a short match. Matt Bourne was really a jobber. In the end, Steamboat hit like a crossbody onto Bourne to win this match. Bourne will end up leaving the company. He ended up coming back in the early 90s, became the first Doink, and the rest is history. Another topic for another time. It's funny that, like, in the first 2 WrestleManias, basically, Steamboat was in his mediocre matches, like, shorter to mediocre matches, because at the following year's WrestleMania, he faced Hercules Hernandez. He was not really that good as a worker. And then, funny that, at WrestleMania 3, he was in one of the top 10 best, greatest WrestleMania matches of all time, fighting against the Macho Man Randy Savage for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 3 at the Pontiac Dome. Funny that, like, he's facing, like, Matt Bourne in WrestleMania 1, Hercules Hernandez at WrestleMania 2, and then he had a high-profile match at WrestleMania 3 in 1987. So the next match, we got Brutus the Barber. No, I'm gonna say the Barber. This is before he became the Barber. Sorry, Bruce Beefcake with luscious Jimmy Valiant in his corner, taking on David Sammartino with his father Bruno in his corner. So they're kind of like putting the eggs in this David Sammartino basket. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out. I'll explain a little bit shortly after this match. So yeah, the fans really got a pop at Bruno. He got that really good reaction because Bruno, if you don't know him, he was a legendary wrestler. He became a 2-time WWF champion, or if you go very old school, a WWF champion. His record, his longest reigning title reign lasts to this day. I think he won it in the the 60s. And dropped the title to, I think it was against Pedro Morales. I think it was Pedro Morales in the early 70s. I might be wrong, don't quote me on that. Anyway, so this match, I think this was the bad match on the show. It was boring, never got out its first gear, and the match ended in a double disqualification. Basically, Jimmy Valiant, who I think he's one half of the Valiant brothers. Anyway, so Jimmy Valiant kind of body slam David Sammartino onto a metal, actually not metal, but onto the concrete floor. I'm trying to say, there's no padding. This is years before WWF started to put padding around the ring. Anyway, so yeah, Valiant body slam David Sammartino. Bruno attacks Valiant, and it kind of ended a double disqualification. It kind of like ended with a massive brawl. Yeah, this was a clusterfuck of a match. It didn't really. No one got over in this match. I think David surely need that win because he's Bruno's son. Because Bruno won all his matches at Madison Square Garden when he was the world champion. Bruce Beefcake, he had a good look. Before he was the Barber, and then he was the Zodiac, the Booty Man, the Disciple. He had multiple crappy gimmicks in both in WWF and also in WCW. He's friends with Hulk Hogan to this day. If he didn't do the Barber gimmick, I think this dude could be like a mid-card champion. I don't see him being a world champion, but maybe in the Intercontinental title picture. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out. As for like David Sammartino, they're trying to put the eggs into the David Sammartino basket. Unfortunately, that never panned out because they were in this time period because they are pushing Hulk Hogan as the face of the WWF. It's very hard to break through the Hulk Hogan ceiling. David Sammartino ended up leaving the company in 1986. He came back in 87, 88. He got fired in 88 in his second run. Before that, they did this show in Philadelphia. I think it was at the Spectrum. David Sammartino got sick of the politics. He basically jobbed out to a jobber. The jobber basically locked David in a bear hug, and he's basically gived up. He came back later. He came back in 87, 88. Unfortunately, he got fired. He quit the first time, but in the second time he got fired because he punched a fan because the fan spit on him. He had runs in I think it was the AWA and Earl Hebden's AWF. That's another story for another time. So let's move on to the next match. So that was match number 4. Match number 5, we got the first championship match in WrestleMania history. We got Greg the Hammer Valentine with Jimmy Hart in his corner, defending the Intercontinental title against the Junkyard Dog, or JYD for short. The match was fine. It was an okay match. You had Jimmy Hart trying to interfere. Valentine was going to cheap shot JYD, but he got out of the way, and Valentine accidentally hit Jimmy Hart by mistake. In the end, Valentine managed to get the victory over the JYD. He basically put his feet on the ropes without the referee noticing. And then you got Tito Santana, because like I said earlier, he's in this feud with Greg the Hammer Valentine, because Greg Valentine won the IC title from Tito Santana in September of 1984, the previous year. Santana kind of discussed the referee that Valentine, his foot was on the ropes, and the match restarted, and then basically Valentine took his IC title belt and left the ring, and then JYD won this match via a countout. This was not some of these matches ended in clusterfucks, it was very short, and then also the Beefcake Sammartino match was ended in a double disqualification. This match was ended in a countout. If it was right now, the fans will shit on it. JYD never won a single title in the two major. I'm talking about two major wrestling companies like the WWF and WCW. In WCW, he was in a world title picture. I think it was against Ric Flair. That was in Clash of the Champions. I'm guessing it was Clash of the Champions 13. I guess. He never won a title. I never say he's gonna be world title material because he was over. I can see him being in an IC title picture. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It's very confusing. You put Tito Santana in the opener against the Executioner, and Greg Valentine putting his IC title belt against the JYD. It'd be much better they could have JYD, no disrespect on him, put JYD in the opener against the Executioner, and then just do this match between Valentine versus Santana for the IC title belt at WrestleMania. Tito Santana will get the IC title back from Greg Valentine a couple months later in a steel cage match in Baltimore. So that was match number 5. Match number 6, we got the US Express. That is Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda, the future IRS, with Captain Lou Albano in his corner. They put the WWF tag team titles on the line against the Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov with Classy Freddie Blassie in their corner. Wow, Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, they got the fucking solid heel heat. You basically, typical Volkov's gimmick, because he sings the Soviet Union's national anthem. Right now it's the Russian national anthem, and fans were throwing really rubbish in the ring. You don't really get that heat a lot. In most recent years, like, a wrestler got that massive heat was against it was Bully Ray when he became the president of the Aces and Eights in TNA in 2013. But in a heel heat, you don't really get that heat though. I think the one wrestler had that heat was Muhammad Hassan way back in like 2004, 2005. And also, no, actually 2005, but, and also, maybe Rusev in 2014, but, anyway, the match between, Sheik and Volkov versus the tag team champions at the time, the US Express, Windham and Rotunda. This was a good match. Wasn't a fantastic match, but it was good for what it is. A little bit overbooked, a little bit in the end. In the end, Sheik hit, I think it was Windham in the head with Blassie's cane without the referee noticing. Volkov pinned, I think it was Windham, to win this match, and Sheik and Volkov become the new WWF Tag Team Champions. First time in the very first WrestleMania that the title changed hands. That reign never lasts long because they end up dropping the titles back to the US Express later on in the year, and then the US Express dropped the tag team titles to the Dream Team. Yeah, they didn't stick around the US Express. They end up leaving the company. Rotunda end up I think they end up going to the AWA, they did the American Express with Dave Spivey, the future Waylon Mercy. Windham he ended up going to the NWA, he ended up being part of the Four Horsemen with Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard. He came back back in the company years later with crappy gimmicks, and then jumped back and forth to WWF and WCW. Mike Rotunda ended up going to the NWA, part of the Varsity Club. He came back years later as IRS, and then the company ended up signing Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt. That was match number 6. Match number 7, we got I think it's called a $15,000 body slam. We got Big John Studd taking on Andre the Giant. So I've done my research. Andre the Giant and Big John Studd have been feuding since 1983. So the build up to this, at least I think this match got really some build to this. I might be wrong. So basically, Big John Studd, in 84, he's been doing a challenge. He did a body slam challenge. Like, if someone basically body slam Big John Studd, you win money. I think it was $15,000 or maybe $10,000. I might be wrong, but anyway. So Andre kind of accept the challenge. So here's the speculate the situation in this match. So if Andre the Giant body slam Big John Studd, he'll win the money. But he felt if Big John Studd body slams Andre the Giant must retire. So yeah, it's basically money against career. You don't get a lot of money in matches these days. I think in recent year, you had just right now in our current timeline, you had Matt Hardy taking on Adam Hangman Page for money at Revolution. So the match between Andre and Big John Studd in a body slam challenge. It was fine for what it is. It was, it wasn't terrible. It was an okay big man versus big man match. In the end, Andre body slams Big John Studd to win the match and win the money. He's giving out the money towards the fans, throwing money towards the crowd, and then all of a sudden you got Bobby Heenan, who was Big John's manager at the time, took the money out of the hands of Andre the Giant because the money was in a big bag. It was a big WWF bag. He took the money and left the ring. And it's a funny fact that 2 years later, Andre ended up teaming up with, joining with Bobby Heenan in his feud with Hulk Hogan, part of the Heenan family. The next match, we've got the first women's title match in WrestleMania history. We got Leilani Kai with the Fabulous Moolah in her corner, defending the belt against Wendy Richter with pop singer Cyndi Lauper in her corner. This is a rematch from a show the previous month called The War That Settled the Score. Leilani Kai will be part of a tag team known as the Glamour Girls with Judy Martin. That'll be later on in the 80s. They become a two-time WWF Tag Team Champions. Leilani Kai defeated Richter on that show for the women's title by the help by the Fabulous Moolah. You're not going to find the show The War That Settled the Score on the network. You'll probably find it on YouTube or a different internet site. Cyndi Lauper, man, she is smoking hot in those 80s, man. Smoking hot. She's one of the catalysts of the company's boom period, the Rock and Roll Connection. She brought this legitimacy, the exposure in the national television, giving it a national boost. She did like a music video the previous summer in 1984 called Girls Just Wanna Have Fun with Captain Lou Albano. And I hope she'll be in the Hall of Fame one day. She deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. She is the first celebrity in this WrestleMania. First of many. I think it's first of 4 on this show. Actually 6. Not 6 or 5. There's 5 celebrities on that show. You had David Wolf appeared. That was in the interview segment. I'll get to that shortly after this match. Anyway, so the match between Leilani Kai and Wendy Richter. By the way, they billed in Richter as the face of the women's division at the time. Anyway, the match between Leilani Kai and Wendy Richter. It was a good match, but not a fantastic match. It's not going to be like a 4-star classic. The style back then in the 80s compared to right now in any wrestling company, whether it's WWE's main roster, NXT, NXT UK, Impact Wrestling, New Japan, Ring of Honor, AEW, the styles are completely different compared to what happened like 30, 40 years ago. It was a bit botchy, but they told a good story in the ring between Kai and Richter. Fabulous Moolah got involved. She kind of pulled on the hair on Wendy Richter. Lauper got involved. I thought it led to a brawl between Moolah and Lauper. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Lauper kind of pulled away from Moolah because she was pulling on the hair of Wendy Richter. Yeah, she didn't get involved. Cyndi Lauper, I thought she was gonna like hit Moolah. Unfortunately, that's not the case. In the end, this was you can kind of like it was a botch a bit botchy in the end. So Kai performed this crossbody off the top rope, and then Richter kind of countered it into a pin. So yeah, Richter pins Kai to regain the women's title. Unfortunately, her time in the spotlight was come to a abrupt halt because months later they did this really, I think it was a house show in Madison Square Garden. It's confirmed on an episode called Dark Side of the Ring. That was way back in 2019, and Wendy Richter confirmed that she dropped the women's title back to the Fabulous Moolah. Not back to the Fabulous Moolah, but she dropped the title to Moolah. So they did this original screw job. This was in Madison Square Garden. I'm gonna keep it short and simple. I don't want to get on it. Watch Dark Side of the Ring. You get more information on that screw job. So this was in Madison Square Garden. Richter dropped the title to the Spider Lady, that is the Fabulous Moolah, under a mask. And the reports back in the day, and really she confirmed it in that 2019 Dark Side of the Ring documentary. They covered it on the Fabulous Moolah that Richter had no idea that Muller was under the mask, and reports that Vince brought in Muller because Richter refused to sign a new deal for the company. Richter claimed that she had 5 more years left for the company, so she kind of leave the company until 1990. But unfortunately, Vince kind of screwed her because she didn't sign a new deal. So brought in the fabulous Muller, did the screw job. This is 12 years before the Montreal screw job at Survivor Series in 1997 between Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels for the world title. So basically, yeah, they screwed Richter out of the title. Richter doesn't really get any knowledge because no one talks about Wendy Richter. People talk about Trish Stratus, Lita, Jacqueline, Molly Holly, Victoria, AJ Lee, list goes on and on and on. But not Wendy Richter. Oh yeah, Alundra Blaze, Medusa, Bull Meccano. But not with, same as Rockin' Robin, I guess, but not Wendy Richter. So she left on very bad terms after, this was in late 1985, so she, left on very bad terms. Vince and Muller played the whole, really plot the whole thing against Wendy Richter to screw her and take the title off her. So yeah, Richter left the company and never speak to the fabulous Muller ever again. Yeah, she left the WWF in very bad terms until 2010 when she got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Yeah, that's mostly I talk about it. If you want more information, go and watch Dark Side of the Ring. So moving on to the very first main event at the very first WrestleMania. So we got a tag team match. We got Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff with Cowboy Bob Orton, the father of Randy Orton. They taken on the WWF champion Hulk Hogan and Mr. T with superstar Jimmy Snuka in their corner. So this is another rematch from the War to Settle the Score. It was a match between Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper for the WWF Championship. It ended in disqualification after it was the DQ by Paul Orndorff that set up a tag team match on the show. There were a lot of celebrities in this WrestleMania. You had Cyndi Lauper at the previous match managing Wendy Richter. You got David Wolf was in the post-interview segment after Richter won the title from Leilani Kai with Cyndi Lauper. So you got Billy Martin, who was a former manager of the New York Yankees, as the special ring announcer. The special timekeeper was Liberace, and the special guest referee was Muhammad Ali, one of the legendary greatest boxers of all time. The proper referee in this match was Pat Patterson. This is, future stooge of Vince McMahon in the Attitude Era. Anyway, so the match between Piper, Orndorff, Mr. T, and Hogan, I say it was a good match. It's not like, I don't really call it okay. I think it's passable, but it was okay for what it is at its time. It's not going to be like a 4-star classic. Mr. T, wow, Mr. T, I know he's not a pro wrestler, but he held on his own. I know he's fit back at the time. He's full of muscles because he was part of the A-Team back in those 80s. He held on his own. This is a feud between him and Piper because they hate each other in real life. And then they kind of put their differences aside. This was later on in life. Anyway, so the match was fine for what it is. It's back and forth. It was a bit overbooked with Muhammad Ali going after, I think it was like Piper and Orton. It's funny that Orton was in his mid-30s at the time, and by the time Orton was in his mid-30s, I'm talking about Randy Orton. Randy, his son, will become a multiple-time world champion. Orton did get involved in the end. He's trying to hit Hogan with the cast. Did like an axle off the top rope. Unfortunately, I think Hogan got out of the way. He accidentally hit Orndorff instead. In the end, Hogan pinned Orndorff to win this match and win the first main event at the very first WrestleMania. And that was it. As for the rivalry between Mr. T and Roddy Piper, it will continue at the next year's WrestleMania. They did a boxing match. That match ended in a DQ when Piper body slammed Mr. T. They kind of put their distance aside later on in life. So, because Piper basically hated Mr. T in real life. I don't know why. I don't want to get into it. Before I ended this, I forgot to tell you that Hogan kind of like did like a promotion for WrestleMania. Hogan appeared in, was it Hot Properties? It's a show hosted by Richard Balzar. He kind of got sued. Was it $5,000 of damages? Because basically Hogan locked Balzar with a front face lock, and Balzar kind of passed out and whacked his head on the floor. And glad he's not like got brain damage, but yeah, you can find it on the internet. And Hogan, yeah, got sued by Balzar, and also he appeared in Saturday Night Live. He became the first wrestler to be on Saturday Night Live. It'll be years later. Then the years later you had The Rock, and then I think it's first out of four. I think it was, yeah, first of all you got Hogan, The Rock, Triple H, and I think the recent wrestler to appear on SNL, sorry, that was John Cena. It was way back in, was it 2017, 2018, I guess. So yeah, as for Hogan, he ended up facing Bundy at WrestleMania 2, Andre in WrestleMania 3, Andre again in WrestleMania 4, Savage in WrestleMania 5, Warrior in WrestleMania 6, Slaughter in WrestleMania 7, Sid in 8, a tag team title match in 9, Yoko in the same WrestleMania, Rock in 18, and Vince in WrestleMania 19. So he had his WrestleMania matches. The only bad WrestleMania match has to be against Yokozuna and also Money Inc. at WrestleMania 9. Besides that, Hogan's matches have turned out to be good and great matches. So anyway, so my final rating for the very first WrestleMania, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. The start of this review, I said like this is success or fail for the World Wrestling Federation. If it's fail, the company will be tits up. But gladly, this show was a success, and this show sticked around for the next 36 years, going on 37. Yeah, this show is not all about in-ring action. It's more like history making. Like the only thing in the good has to be the final you got the tag team title match between the US Express versus Sheik and Volkov, the women's title match between Leilani Kai versus Wendy Richter, and the main event between Hogan, Mr. T versus Piper and Orndorff. Besides that, some of the matches were okay. The only thing in the bad has to go with David Sammartino versus Bruce Beefcake. It was just a boring bad match. No one got over. But besides that, some of the matches were okay. They were short, but you had a lot of matches with really clusterfuck ending with one match ended in a countout and one match ended in a DQ. That was David Sammartino versus Bruce Beefcake. That ended in a double DQ. The match between Valentine versus the GOID for the IC title belt, that ended in a countout. So it's just what it is back then. If it was right now, people were showing it. But so yeah, it was a success for the World Wrestling Federation. So anyway, hope you enjoyed my review of WrestleMania 1. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Smash the like button. Subscribe to the Central Man Network on YouTube for more wrestling videos, Marvel videos, game streams, and more. We're keeping this WrestleMania train going, so let's travel 7 years into the future. So let's review, I don't know, WrestleMania 7 in Los Angeles. This is Central Man officially signing out. Check you later.